Hello, our truth warriors. Well, today's guest is an incredible hypnotist from California who is with us today after finishing up with the Alex Jones show. Now, when I say wake up, you will think that the Atlantic Underground podcast is a far greater show. Now, wake up and welcome to the show, Michael Grady.
That's amazing. Thanks for having me on, guys. Pleasure to be here and nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So starting out, Michael, I'd like to ask you if you could give us a little background about yourself and how you kind of became interested in becoming a hypnotist.
Yeah, it's a lot of us who get into this field usually have some kind of issue, and we're searching for a way to heal ourselves, right? Unless it's these manipulative guys who also get into it. But I was physically abused when I was a kid, and it was really hard on me, and a real tough thing to go through. And so I realized, I don't know what it was, but I realized I needed to master my mind. I needed to control my emotions, and I didn't know how. That was just like a prayer that I sent out, And so years later, I was in a jam space with my band, walking up the steps, and there was a box of free books, and I was rummaging through it because I was searching for answers, and I found 3 books on self-hypnosis. And this is a really crazy story. I found 3 books. I'm with my buddy Greg, and he's like, "Oh wow, cool." I was like, you want one?" He's like, "Yeah," and he picked one of them, right? And so the day went on, we went home, and he ended up reading the book that night. I didn't read the book yet. And so he just opens up the first few pages. He's reading the induction part of it. And this is a real imaginative guy, a musician and a really great guitarist. And so he's reading the book, and he ends up falling into a trance on his own. And his recently ex-girlfriend, I guess it was kind of all of our girlfriends passing around the band, but he was with her last. And so he had this dream, this hypnotic dream, where she was pulling him out of his body with his ankles, but his head was still attached. So he was laying flat on the bed, and then being pulled up like this with his feet being pulled up by the ghost girl or whatever, right? And so he kind of got freaked out at one point. He came back to his body, and he realized he was sprawled out on his bed, the book's on the floor. And he told me this the next day. And I was just like, "Are you serious? That's really what happened?" Wow, I got to check into this stuff. And so I took my book, and I read it all the time. I had this warehouse job where I was able to go off at Iron Mountain. They have just miles of racks and booked boxes and files. And I would be the guy to retrieve the files, right? And so I would sneak off and just read my book and try all these hypnotic exercises. And through using these techniques, I was able to completely heal the emotional trauma that my dad did to me, right? And by the way, my dad's a great guy. I love him. You're just brought up in a world where that's kind of what they did, right? And so I got to this level of just deep understanding, and I was okay with myself. As a musician, I would be on stage, and I would be just when I would play my bass, I wouldn't even move. I'd just stay still. And my friends would be like, "How come you're not moving at all?" Right? After that, I became extremely expressive, and I felt like myself again. It was the best feeling ever. And so friends heard I was doing it, and I had a party at my mom's house once where she was gone on a business trip, and a couple friends wanted to try it out. So we went up to my room. One friend laid on my floor, and a girl laid on my bed. And I was like, "Oh, I figure I'll just talk to them like I talk to myself," right? And so I do the whole thing. I do some self-esteem, you feel good about yourself kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, "Okay," I get to the end of the script. "Okay, we're done." My buddy on the floor, he opens his eyes, he's looking around, he's like, "I can't move." And then the girl's like, yeah, I can't move either. I'm like, oh no, what do I do? I'm like, okay, so feel your fingers, feel your legs, feel the air in the room, like slowly bringing them back, right? And they felt okay afterwards. They felt great. And it really just like gave me a big realization, like there's something going on here that I really want to learn more about. And it also taught me the lesson, how do you induce hypnosis? You learn how to do it yourself, and you can basically just guide someone just like they're on the phone coming to your house, and you know the route so well that you don't even need to look at the map. You know all the landmarks, right? You know how long the streets are, where to take the turns. And so that's kind of how I looked at inducing hypnosis in other people, because I'm like, yeah, I know how to do it to myself. I can do it to you. And that enables me to have like a deep level of rapport with other people in this technique to really make it work.
But there needs to be a trust factor there. I think I've heard you say that before. For somebody to kind of to buy in it or to be hypnotized.
Exactly. Like how do we influence our friends and family? What's the language pattern, right? What's the Milton Erickson technique or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those are important, but if you don't have the rapport and the connection with a person,
right,
it really doesn't go very far, unless it's a very suggestible person. But generally speaking, having the rapport, just like a salesman, right? I don't know if you guys have ever been into sales or studied sales or whatever, but rapport is paramount.
Yes.
Right. I used to be an insurance agent, and I learned from very successful guys. And one of the big things was when we start our appointment, you literally just sit there and talk for 20 minutes just to get to know the person. You feel friendly, and then they can start to be open to your ideas. And then when you start to use the hypnotic language and stuff like that, that's when it really gets powerful. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I went on and took a course, and I started my first hypnosis show. I was able to quit my grocery store job, because I made more money that one night than the whole 2 weeks of working there. And I was like, wow, I can actually make this something, right? I can make it a career. Yeah. Right. Everyone doubted me. Everyone thought I was a weird occultist or something, but I knew I was onto something. And the first big hypnosis show I had all my family sitting in front row, stage left, and just blew them all away. And they've been supportive ever since.
Fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now, going back 17 months ago, now we saw in China people walking along, passing out, supposedly dropping dead in the streets. Now, this to me was and immediately when I saw it, I just kind of thought, no, something's not right here. But the fear factor that was put into that and the media, the way they spun it, would you say that was some kind of mass hypnosis from the beginning?
Oh man, you're really hitting the nail on the head here, because I use this example because it was the whole start of it, right? And it's it's how does the news hypnotize people, right? It's playing with the emotions, right? It's kind of like a manipulative guy to a girl who plays with her emotions to keep her in control, right? Or a girl to a guy. I mean, it can go either way, right? Manipulating emotions is super powerful, because an emotional state is an unconscious response, right? And you wouldn't feel anything if you didn't believe it, right? And so, but with the persuasive videos that they make, it induces that fear. And then, with the chart I always like to show, because it really gives a good visual, right? You got the conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the gateway is the critical factor, right? And as soon as you see an idea, these people collapsing, right? And a lot of people just believe it, right? Some of us were very skeptical, right? But a lot of just believed it. And so what happens is unconscious response gives access to the subconscious mind, opens up the critical factor. And now the whole news segment is just suggestions to the person. And I plan on breaking down some of these news clips, because they give very specific instructions on how to feel. And from there, they just need to start to believe the fear, right? They didn't need to induce like, now you have to wear a mask and now you got to get your medical procedures. They just did it one step little bit by little bit along the way. Just like if I were to do hypnosis in like an hour for somebody, you know, in like 20 minutes, it's always this progressive, believable steps the whole way through to induce and open up the imagination. But, you know, when you can do it over a year and a half, many months, it can become extremely effective, right? Because it's just little believable steps.
And another thing I think I saw on one of your podcasts, and you were talking to a guy, and it really struck me, and it was important, is that when they had everybody locked down, you know, a lot of people, they had nothing to do but watch the news and watch TV, and they were, and of course we know how powerful the TV can be. You're watching it over and over again, and the commercials and the new, you know, the whole thing. And I mean, these are, you know, these are professional marketing people that know all these tricks.
Oh yeah.
To really tap in to that subconscious fear to generate the compliance, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like the whole social distance thing and keeping you home, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think about how when I had an unruly crowd to deal with, to hypnotize, I would literally separate the chairs 6 feet apart from each other so they wouldn't disturb one another. So they wouldn't give each other an idea like, hey, you know, he's going to get you, you know, like the kid next to him. And I would have a much higher success rate hypnotizing people. And it's just like what cults do, right? They remove you from your environment. You go into some property out in the woods, they take your phone, right? And they control the whole narrative. And, you know, weeks go by and you got no money in your bank account and you drank the juice, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize how powerful that is to keep everyone separated. You know, they're even doing this to the teachers. I'm talking to a lot of teachers now that I put out this content about the schools, the LA school system, and they're saying how they're not even allowing teachers to talk to one another, right? Which stops them from spreading the message, from getting them out of this trance that they're indoctrinated with the TV.
Yeah. No,
right.
Now, you're a musician, and let's talk about one of the most famous musicians in the world, being John Lennon. Yeah. Now, John Lennon, famous assassination where he was killed. Was it Mark Chapman? Was it that shot him?
I forget the name.
Yeah, I think it was Mark David Chapman.
Yeah. Now, there is stories going round that the shooting didn't go down the way it was. There was people from something called the Group of 40, where one of them was the doorman at the hotel. But it's believed that people like Chapman were under a control system like MK Ultra. Do you believe programs like MK Ultra and such things like that can actually train people's minds to go out and be it somewhere or do an assassination and not even realize that they've been part of it?
Absolutely. 100%. A lot of hypnotists won't want to say this. You know, honestly, most hypnotists really don't even understand that level of it, but it's absolutely true. You know, I realized this when I came back from hypnosis school. I did a lot of experiments with people. You know, I really wanted to learn this stuff and test the limits. And basically can just get anyone to do anything. It's really, really amazing. You know, you just have to get them to that deep state. And especially if you're able to keep doing do the hypnosis with them day after day, you know, for weeks at a time, like they're traumatized for life, right? Unless they get professional help to undo it. It's Darren Brown. I don't know if you guys have heard him.
Yes, we have.
He's got a lot of great hypnotic demonstrations on his show. And I believe he proved this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And do you think that there's the possibility, you know, we've seen the movies and stuff where all of a sudden a phone call can come through and somebody's going on about the day normally through the routines that they do. And then all of a sudden, a phone call comes through and there's a key word that will trigger something in somebody's mind. Is that possible as well?
Oh yeah, 100%. Post-hypnotic suggestion, right? And in therapy, we do this all the time. You know, we say anytime that I say the word sleep and we're going into hypnosis, you drop instantly back down to this deep, relaxed state. And so I can have a client who I hypnotized before come back to my office. I literally can just have them take a deep breath in, sleep. They're right back down to where they started because they're conditioned. And so just like they can go back into a sleep state, any kind of state can be triggered like that.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to ask you to go back to the LA United School District. I know you've had some videos. I watched the video there today. Can you maybe talk about some of the stuff that they're doing to really kind of keep everybody in line with this narrative?
I mean, at this point, they're using every trick in the book from all angles. You know, they're going full on with this. I think a lot of us, you know, are starting to notice this, but without a trained eye, sometimes you're not spotting out every single thing, right? So like in the one of the biggest videos I released recently is they literally hired an infomercial giant behind the George Foreman grill, the Juice Man juicer, the Nordic track, Tony Robbins personal power, all of these super popular, successful products. They hired that guy to make this video for the school, you know, this animation that is full of hypnotic language and NLP techniques, anchoring love into the daily past. So then the kids are going through the motion of answering their tests every day if they're sick and signing up for their medical procedure, right? They're literally using the feeling of love. Like, I'm doing this for my family, right?
Yeah.
And I proved this in a preceding video after that, where there were all these students talking on camera, like, why are you getting your medical procedure? Well, they all had the same response. I'm doing it for my family. I want my family to be safe. I'm doing it for my family. Literally, word for word, they're all saying the same kind of thing with no reason beyond that, right? And it's, I mean, that was what got me to start talking about this, because I saw this happening to the kids, and it just like really broke my heart, you know?
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, also, I know I saw also that, was it the school opening? They had the opening assembly, and it was all set up like like a funeral.
Yeah,
and it wasn't that something? And how they moved, they had the wreath there, like the funeral wreath, and then when the mistress of ceremonies, remember that this lady, this former CNN whatever she was, presenter, she was anchor, called the anchor, and was called the mistress of ceremonies, and they moved the wreath so everybody could still see it and focus on that, you know, that narrative of like sorrow and darkness. It was just bizarre.
Exactly. Like they're pulling every concept out of the book that they can use to manipulate these kids in the deepest, darkest way, right? They literally open the ceremony like a funeral, the dim lighting, take a moment of silence to remember the people who have passed away.
Yeah.
And then they did this long moment of silence focusing on the wreath. It was like a minute long of just like, you know, keep thinking about the people who passed away.
I think it was even longer than that. I think it was like 2 minutes. It would seem pretty long.
Yeah. I think I cut a little bit out of it because it was just way too long.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, after the feeling of grief and death was anchored into this wreath, they then put it behind the podium where the rest of the speakers were speaking. And even the CNN lady, she's wearing a green shirt to match the wreath. Right. Yeah. So they want to stimulate that feeling. They know exactly what they're doing. She didn't just put on a green shirt for no reason.
No.
Right.
Way. Yeah, I know. Crazy. It's crazy.
Now, why are we seeing some people who are awake and can see what's going on around the world right now, and others that just seem to be going along with it and totally buying it hook, line, and sinker? And how come there's two different sets of people that we're seeing this divide for those who are awake, those who are asleep? But is there also a way to wake these people up? Is there some kind of method or something that can be done to stop them going along with this crazy narrative?
Right. Great questions. This is the real deal we're facing right now. So why is it some people are listening, right, and some people aren't? And it's kind of like the question of, you know, how come I'm hypnotizing some people in the show and not others, right? There are just people who are better trained at just following along, right? The whole point of school, I believe, and as a hypnotist, this is what I would do, if I was going to rule the world, the nation, is I would make sure that everyone has a very weak critical factor, because the whole challenge is getting through this gateway, right? Getting through your reasoning, getting through your thinking, your analyzing, the way you come up with a conclusion, right? So it's really those people who aren't buying it, right? Because they're thinking for themselves. And so it's those people who grew up not thinking for themselves as much, just regurgitating answers, just following authority, right? The people who are kissing up to the teacher the most and following along the most, which are great people. We can think of these people and we love them all, but they just follow along. They have a very weak critical factor to think for themselves. And I asked this question. I was like, I asked this question to myself, and I was like, why am I able to see this and not everybody else? I asked this a long time ago. and I went into meditation shortly after that, and it just came to me. And I realized it's like, as a kid, I spent a lot of time by myself. I used my imagination. I played with my toys by myself, right? I didn't have much of a TV. And then I asked this on Facebook. I was like, what do you guys think? How come you aren't duped by this? And a lot of people kind of had the same experience. They had a childhood where they kind of had enough time to think for themselves, right? Instead of being so close to other people and needing to be accepted all the time and not think for themselves and just monkey see, monkey do nonstop. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys kind of in that realm when you think back to your childhoods?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Really?
No, go ahead, Chris.
I know that they say that every suggestive idea which enters the consciousness, once it's in there, if it's then accepted by the subconscious, then it's automatically kind of transformed into reality for people. And they start to believe that that's it, because the subconscious mind has accepted, as you say, that CF section there, the critical factor. Once it's bypassed that, once it's gone from being in the conscious mind into subconscious, that's it. It becomes reality for people, which is, I imagine, why when you have people under hypnosis, you can make them eat an onion and think it's a juicy apple, or you can put a chair down and tell them that they can't lift it up and they think it's glued to the floor.
Yeah. And then have the little girl who, the smallest little girl move it for the guy, right?
Yeah.
That's a really great point. Once an idea goes in the subconscious, all of a sudden it grows like a seed and it finds reasons to be true, right? And so that's when we talk to people and ask them, so why do you like wearing the muzzle so much, and why do you like those medical procedures? They give you this run-on answer that doesn't really make sense. They'll give you the set responses that they're programmed with, but they also just give you this unending, jarble of reasoning that's just like, can you read this for yourself?
Yeah. They'll give you the, I trust the experts, or I trust the science.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always love that one. It's like, oh, really? What science do you trust? Right? You trust their science, right?
Oh, conspiracy theorists. I'm gonna.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the first thing they'll say. But you were talking about education and stuff like that. There's a book here that I read actually called "Weapons of Mass Instruction" by John Taylor Gatto. Wow. And I know actually when you talked to Dr. Kaufman last night, he did mention it a little bit, and it's really interesting because of it's based on the Prussian system to basically generate workers and order followers, really, and soldiers, and that's our school system. That's how it was set up, right? So basically anybody that will question the teacher, you're going to the office, right? We don't do that here, right? You know what I mean? So they didn't like the people that kind of, went out of the way and were kind of the rebels, right? This is the whole system, I guess. Our whole learning system was set up for this very reason, and we're kind of seeing the results of that, I guess, right now.
Right. I mean, I believe it's been happening. People have been in this kind of state most of the time. But it was just never as big as an issue as it is now. I mean, they didn't teach us how to farm. They're not teaching us how to create our own business.
No.
Right. They're not teaching us how to do taxes so you don't pay as much.
Exactly.
Right? these real things that we could have used, it's all about making you follow, right? So, if you don't pay attention, you're going to go to the principal's office, right? All these things. And so now when a person goes to work, they're perfect because they just listen to the boss. Okay, I'll do what I'm told, right? I mean, I hope people get that. I don't think a lot of people see that, but I think that's becoming more apparent now. It's a really great point to bring up.
No, that's it. And like, as you say, things that aren't taught. I mean, money itself, the amount of times I've said to people, where do you think money comes from? And they're completely unaware. They go out and they'll put in 40 hours a week to get pay at the end of the week. And they never question where that money comes from. When they go to the bank and they take a mortgage or a loan out, they assume that it's coming out of an account full of money.
Right.
And when you try and explain to them that it never existed in the first place, they just don't believe you. I just say to them, go and look yourself, go and find this out yourself and do the research. The majority of the books that I have here, I've picked up over the years.
Yeah, dude, you're a leader because you're a reader.
Yeah, but this is the information that's in these books would never be taught at school. And if it was taught in school, it would change the world in one generation.
Seriously, it's that powerful. It really is. Yeah,
100%. Now, I saw a recent Facebook post that you made, and it really struck me. It was a post, and you talked about manifesting, or somebody asked you about, I believe, about manifesting things in our lives and what we don't want. So I think you said we must address what we repress. And that really struck me. Could you talk maybe a little bit more about that and why it's so important?
Yes, this is probably the most important thing of all of this, to understand what everybody's going through so we can have a little bit more compassion for what people are going through, and also knowing about this, right? Where do I begin? This is a deep subject, but I'll bring it to the basics here. Our brain transmits a frequency, right? Our heart transmits a frequency. Heart Math Organization, they prove this with science, right? The brain transmits a frequency. You can put an EEG band just on your head without going into your brain. It'll pick up all the alpha, data, theta, whatever waves, the brainwave activity. It's a real thing, right? Dr. Emoto, he did an experiment where he had a monk pray in a bunch of different bottles of the same water, positive emotions, negative emotions, right? And he would take a drop from the thing of water, the bottle of water, and freeze it on a little microscopic dish and look at it. And the positive ones look like this, like a nice, beautiful snowflake, right?
Yeah.
Just like
love. There you go. Yeah, that's stuff. So I like to bring up that concept because it gives you the physical reality of how this is working, right?
Right.
So the positive emotions look like beautiful snowflakes, had a nice geometrical design. They all had different types of designs based on the emotions. And then the negatives looked like dark blobs, and they weren't even crystallized, right?
Yeah.
And so then you think, okay, well, my body is made of water, so what's happening there, right? But then you also have to realize it's happening outside of you. And so how do we get out of this crazy, wild situation that we're in? How do we create, which is really means, how do we create the life that we're happy with, really, at the end of the day? Of course, we want everything great for the world, but really, we want a good life for ourselves.
We got to start with ourselves first, though, don't we? Before we can kind of emanate that out to the world.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put your oxygen mask on before you put someone else's on, or else you're going to pass out, right?
Right.
So knowing that fact is like really, really key, because it sounds like, oh, airy fairy, new age stuff, law of attraction or whatever, right? No, this is how reality works, right? And so, how does a snowflake form, right? I brought this example up before, and it's really powerful. How does a snowflake form? I don't know. It just freezes, right? There's a vibrational structure in nature that's natural and beautiful, right? You look at everything in nature, it's just awe-inspiring. It crystallizes because there's a vibrational structure, right? And so everything we are aware of is affected by that energy. And so the feeling of love, the feeling of goodness is a nice, perfect crystallization vibrational structure.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you manifest the things that you want? I mean, you basically just got to feel good about everything in your life. Right. It really comes down to that. But the biggest challenge is negative emotion and being triggered. Right. It's just like the vibration plate with the sand, and you can dial in the frequency. Woo, right. It goes into a nice, beautiful pattern. Woo, it goes into another nice, beautiful pattern. And then if you go, it'll screw it all up. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so when when we are in our life and we're going back and forth, where, yeah, this information sounds so good, I love it, and then tomorrow you're like, oh, I hate my job, I got no money, these people. It's going back and forth. So you can't ever really physicalize something if you don't hold the frequency long enough. Just like on the vibration plate, if you hook it up to a keyboard, you got to kind of play the notes a couple times to get it all to move, right? We have to transmit the frequency, feel those feelings long enough that things physicalize. And so the hardest part is getting past negative emotions, right? One of the things that we noticed is, you ever notice people who have the same reoccurring bad relationships?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. But that's a subconscious thing, though. It's like a self-sabotaging program that keeps rerunning.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You think you're going, things are going well, and it's almost like the subconscious goes, no, this is where you're at, right?
Right. I'm going to get a different, better person.
Right.
Well, you didn't change anything behind here, so it's going to be kind of the same person over and over again, right? And they get married 3, 4, 5 times and stuff. Hey, some of us got to go through those lessons,
And that goes for money as well, right? Even for people that have won the lottery and then they ended up spending all that money within a year, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. You got the subconscious mindset of money, and you're just going to go back to your old ways if you don't address the subconscious and figure out how to change it. Right. And so a lot of people who keep seeing bad results in their life over and over again, it's a subconscious thing, right? And so one of the best ways to correct this is addressing the worst case scenario. No one wants to think about the worst thing that's going to happen. Oh no. Right. But when they think about it, it's that feeling, right? Oh no, it might happen. I don't want to think about it. Okay, let me put the TV on. Yeah. I'm not thinking about it, right? I'm not going to manifest it. No, because when you bring up the thought, you have the negative emotion, right? So if you can bring up anything, you think of anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, we have that vibration in the back of our head and the subconscious transmitting to create it again, right? And so addressing the worst case scenario, finding a way to feel okay about it, right? Like the worst case scenario for a lot of us right now is, oh my goodness, martial law, and they're coming after us and force things, and so that's why I think prepping is really powerful. You may never have to use it, but now that you have the supplies and you're a little bit prepared, now the fear subsides and you're actually less likely to create it in your life, which is weird. It's like a weird paradox,
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying there. Now, do you think that the people behind the current situations, and we're talking institutions like the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, filtering right the way down through to governments, right the way through the world, and as we said earlier, the news corporations as well. But are these people employing psychologists instead of qualified medical specialists in the field of the likes of viruses? And are using these specialists in psychology to project this mass hypnosis across everyone deliberately?
100%. Yeah. I'll share a secret with you guys to help know the answer here. I was approached once by, I guess you could say, the Illuminati, right? Many years ago. There was a guy who was an author. On the surface, he was this poet, right? But behind the scenes, the guy was writing propaganda pieces. And so he approached me and he was like, can you help me learn this stuff? And I didn't know what he was into at first. And so I would say, sure, there's this concept, there's that concept. I gave him a lot of information. He didn't seem to really grasp it though. And so he ended up talking to his mentor, which is a very popular mystic, which is funny because recently I saw him doing his mysticism tricks on camera while getting the medical procedure, which really confirms it, who he's working for. And so they offered me millions of dollars because they wanted to use my skills for political purposes. I don't know who, I didn't know what plans they had at the time. Well, I guess we can see what happened, now. But yeah, there's a lot of people behind the scenes like me who know all these concepts, and they're using them in every single way they can.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd like to talk to you about something that I saw on the Alex Jones show that you did last night that Dr. Kaufman was talking about. It was the various social conditioning experiments, like the Ash experiment and the Milgram experiment. And it kind of revealed how easy it is to get people to kind of conform to an idea based on social and authoritarian pressures. So what do you think about that?
That's kind of something we call in hypnosis environmental hypnosis, right? Just by being around people and things will influence you, right? And those are really great examples. And I really want to make a video with those examples and kind of put them together and show them, right? So the Ash experiment was really just a very simple kindergarten type question, right? You have one line and then 3 different lines, and you only have to just match up what's the same length of the line, right? Is it 1, 2, or 3, right? Oh, it's number 1. It's the same length, right? And so with the participant who doesn't know that the other people around him are in on this experiment, they all say one common wrong answer. And so by the second or third time that they change the card to a new set of lines, he will literally, at first he's looking around like, what are these guys thinking? It's obviously number 1, right? When everyone else is like 3, 3, 3, 3, and he's sitting there, 3. He says the wrong word. He says the wrong answer just to comply. I'm not really sure how to explain that. It's just we are just influenced by the people around us, right? Those of us in the self-development world get told you're the average of your 5 best friends, right? And it kind of sounds weird and like, are you sure about that? I mean, can't I just hang out with this guy, that's been my friend forever? I know he just sits around and watches TV all the time and doesn't do anything, but can't we just hang out? Well, you're going to pick the wrong answer being around him.
But do you think that's because, like, subconsciously for our survival, we've always needed to stay with the herd? Do you know what I mean? That like a primal thing?
Absolutely. It's a deep-seated way of getting love, right? Because if you're gonna go against the grain, you're not gonna be like your family and your friends. They'll start thinking you're a little different. They're gonna kind of outcast you a little bit, and now you don't feel love. And so, yeah, we have like this subconscious thing to just keep following along so we can feel included in our group, right? And so it's only been the strong-minded like us to kind of like, I don't know, it seems different, and not separate from that our own answers. It's a really powerful concept. More people need to know that.
We're having a little bit of trouble with your microphone there again, Michael. I don't know.
Okay.
It's kind of gone a little bit electronically like it did yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing I did yesterday.
Yeah. Really?
Well, I mean,
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
When you look at the mindset, like you said, with that experiment there, this is the same mindset of a lot of people. We see the polls, which will come up before any election, and people will watch, and whoever seems to be the most popular, people will say, well, that's who I'm going to vote for, because there's an inherent thing within people where they want to be on the winning side. They want to be part of it. They want to be supporting the winning team. So when they're out in public afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, I voted for them, or oh yeah, I supported that team to win. And it seems that people have to appear to be successful and winning in life by associating themselves with other people who are winning things. And again, it's one huge illusion in regards to that, to the point where, you know, it has been discussed that there shouldn't be any kind of debate on who's winning the elections leading up to it, because it influences so many people.
That's such a good point. Yeah. People are picking the same answers everyone else is picking because they can go up to their friends like, yeah, I'm part of the battle too, and I'm doing the right thing for the team, right? Not critically thinking, just following along. That's such a great point.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Now, speaking of, you've got groups like the Magic Circle. Is there any kind of governing body behind hypnotism which doesn't want you talking openly about the things that you're talking about right now?
Not as much as like the magicians, because magic is purely going to be a physical trick that you see, right? Not really. I don't think so, but I do think it's kind of unsaid. And a lot of hypnotists do try to tell the story that, oh, I can't make you do anything against your own will, to try to gain rapport with a client so they're not afraid, so that those kinds of things are said a lot. But it honestly, it makes it harder, for me to go do a show. And if I teach all my tricks, and if everybody knows them, like when I say, like, I'll set up language techniques where I'll have someone imagine that a steel bar is embedded in their arm. And on the count of 3, I want you to try to bend your arm, right? Okay, 1, 2, 3, try, right? Right, well, what is try? Try, and it presupposes failure, really, So
Yeah.
There's little language tricks like that. So now that I just said that and people know it, if I go to do those hypnotic experiments, they're going to be a little bit less likely to work.
Yeah, it's like
right?
lack language in any conversations that people are having. If people are, just generally having a conversation and they're using words which kind of lead them down the path of, the path of failure in regards to what they're saying. Oh, maybe I will. I'll try my best. Rather than saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get out there and do this, and I'm really going to make this happen. The negative side of things opposed to the positive side of things, it really does affect the mindset and the ability of people, doesn't it?
It does. It's such a huge little shift. It's reframing the situation. Just those little words, people don't think they mean a lot, but when you use a lot of little words in a 10-minute conversation, it will have a completely different direction. It's like when you're putting salt in a soup, right? One little pinch isn't going to change the soup that much, but 10 pinches of salt is really going to change the flavor. And that's what all these little language techniques and hypnotic things do when they're all combined, and when the media uses them all, it becomes extremely successful.
Yeah,
to get their outcome. Yeah.
Do you think the same is used with law and legalese? When a policeman says, do you understand? People say, oh yeah, I understand. But that word understand in reality gives them the authority to stand under. So when they use terms in legalese, and especially, when you look into the likes of the Black's Law Dictionary and how words are used within the court system, as well as the police, the way they use certain words, and they're probably trained to do this, but they're completely unaware of what they're doing. Yeah. And it's the same, I believe, with a lot of corporate symbolism as well. For major corporations, the energetic field from these corporate symbols and the colors that they use will send out a message subconsciously into people's minds.
Yeah, it's like the apple symbol, right? The bite out of the apple, the original sin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when I realized that, I was like, oh my goodness. Wow. Right.
Yeah.
I had a point there. I forget what I was going to say. Oh, so like the officer getting you to say, do you understand? Yes, sir, I understand. Right. It's like a person who knows sales really well and does the whole yes set thing. Right. So you do want to buy a house, right? Yeah. You like the color white, right? Yeah. Well, I have a white house right here. Oh yeah. Opening their mind little by little.
Right.
Here's a major hypnotic concept that makes hypnosis work. It's a too simple process. Pacing and leading. Right? You can use this concept to hypnotize anybody deeply. All you have to do is pace them with where they're at. So you're speaking something that's true that they can agree to. And then in a small incremental fashion, you lead them to where you want to go. Right? So the simple basic example in hypnosis, now that you are seated comfortably, ready to be hypnotized, go ahead and take a nice deep breath in, full of air. That's the lead, right? And then now as you exhale, that's the pace again. Allow yourself to relax down even deeper. And as you are relaxing deeper, feel your shoulders drop down, right? You continue that process, pace, lead, pace, lead, pace, lead, pace, lead, all the way. And so now if you know that concept and you see them doing it on the news where they'll tell you of what you know is true, which is usually based on a previous example from a different show, a different day, they're building on that pacing and leading, right? So just like I do a hypnotic experiment, right, where I make their hands completely glued and they can't pull them off. Now that you know your hands are glued and they will not come apart, they then know the feeling of that glue sticky feeling, right? So then I can induce that as a hallucination. Now your hand is stuck to your head. That same glue that stuck your hands together is now having your hand stuck to your head. And you can continue this progression off of the imagination, the emotions, and it will, and in 10 minutes, I can literally lead someone into a somnambulistic state where they can lose all memory, have amnesia, forget things, and they basically can be open to anything.
Yeah.
Right. And if a guy like me can just walk up and like, hey, let's do an imagination trick, it's going to be fun, right? Okay. They just comply, right? One step to the next step to the next step. And then eventually in somnambulism, right? And so what has the news done to us? Okay, first be scared with the people dropping, right? Okay, now we're just going to do 14 days to flatten the curve, right? Okay, now we're going to start wearing masks, right? So this is one step, one step, one step. And then that's where people are like, it's just a mask, man. Come on.
Right, exactly. And that's what we always heard. It's just a mask, man.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's like someone who's dealing with me. Yeah. Your arm is just, you can't bend. Yeah, it's just your arm not bending.
Right.
But if you continue following along, you're going to be zonked in a few minutes.
But we talked about it earlier about the people that couldn't really see this. I mean, Chris and I and many others were just like, well, yeah, it's a mask now, but then it's going to be a procedure later, and it's going to be a digital pass later, and it's going to be, you know what I mean? We could see into the future, but we're not fortune tellers or intuitives or anything. We could see it because, we could see what they were doing. They were leading slowly, you know what I mean? And that's what they're, and so now there's people now they're starting to kind of figure it out a little bit more, right? They're starting to go, oh, well, they said it was only 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, now it's almost 2 years, right?
Right. That's why I think it's so important for us to keep talking about this message with our own repetition, because there's going to be moments where these people are kind of like, they start to doubt a little bit. That's when we can start to break it.
Yeah.
Right. And so keep sending the message, guys. Keep posting the memes, keep sharing these shows, right? continue to be tuned in, because it does. I mean, I have a couple friends every so often that they were deep in it, and now they're messaging me like, man, I'm really regretting what I did.
And I've said the same to Chris, and I know he's had the same. We also have had friends that were kind of almost like they're sitting on the fence, just kind of not saying a whole lot. But now it's kind of to the point where now they're like, okay, there's something going on now. Like we're kind of starting to see what you guys were seeing a while ago. But I'd like to ask you about, I know you're based out of LA in California. So
around it. Yeah.
Okay. Then in that vicinity. So maybe if you could give us an update about what's going on there. And I'd also like to ask you about what are your thoughts on how Hollywood has kind of endorsed this whole narrative, and kind of a lot of influential actors and people in the scene have kind of kept this thing going, right?
Yeah, I'm off kind of out of the city. Well, I am out of the city, and I'm not really going into town too much, honestly.
Right.
I'm taking my own precaution about not being around people who got their medical procedures, because I'm not really sure about, is there shedding going on? Are they really safe? I don't know. I don't want to mess with it, honestly, so I'm just focused doing my own thing and my own, I got my RV. I can travel wherever I want. I can go out in the woods. I can, go to the ocean. I can do whatever I want. And, I kind of keep my distance. They did start reinstating the mask policy. Right. And so some places are enforcing it more than others. But yeah, that's the California update. What was the second thing you said?
Oh, just about like how Hollywood is kind of like helped reinforce this narrative that they've been, going along for about almost 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a video yesterday of a major sports star who came out and said he was offered money to go on camera and encourage his followers, to do this, right? More social influence, someone in authority, someone you look up to. When your favorite music artist comes out and says, hey guys, it's okay, it's safe, right? The same phrases.
Yeah.
People are going to be influenced.
Yeah. Then you got the likes of Eric Clapton, who says he wish he hadn't done it.
Exactly, man. Yeah. I mean, my friend, my good friend is good friends with him. And he was not happy at all. Yeah. And it's good he's speaking out,
Absolutely.
And when yesterday, when before I went on the Alex J show, Andy brought up this cartoon rap video that we didn't cover, and I'm planning on doing a video now about it, where they literally brought in Run DMC, right? The big rap OG, right? There is none higher, right? And I looked deep into this. I was like, okay, they made this animation video, promoting the medical procedure, and just a little bit of Google search. It wasn't that hard. The organization that put this project together was called Hip Hop Public Health, and they get all their funding from the NIH, right? Which we know is headed by Mr. Fauci, right? And his wife that put through the studies. And they're going from all angles. Yeah. And someone in authority, right? Someone in authority allows you to accept an idea by opening up the critical factor. That's a major hypnotic element, as well as repetition, of course. And people are getting duped by it.
And with Run DMC, when they were asked, do they believe in everything that's going on, did they turn around and say it's like that and that's the way it is?
Well, it's I don't know any was that a lyric?
Yes.
I'm not too familiar with his work, honestly, but it was funny because I was just looking in to see, okay, DMC and the V, he's actually on camera doing like this media press thing about it, and they literally had no needle at the end of the syringe.
Yeah. No,
great video content, let me tell you.
They probably said, do you want lots of money to promote something? And they've said, okay. You said, all right, walk this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, going back to things that have been a real influence on people, going back to the likes of 9/11 and other incidents around the world, these have led to clear defined goals for political gain and corporate gain over the years.
Yeah.
Is the timing of these events, what some people will class as false flags, all part of the show to influence the minds of people overall to go ahead with an idea, to the point where, yet people get killed and most people would completely dismiss the idea that this was done deliberately to move on to a next stage.
Right. Yeah, it's really crazy to think how many people still haven't realized what happened.
Yes.
Right. Which proves that people have been in this hypnotic state the whole time. Now they're just in a high level hallucination. Right. I at one point in my life, I was living in Ecuador in this village, really was like 8 hours away from the airport up in the Andes Mountains. And it was like this refuge place where expats would escape to, and a lot of like special ops people in NASA, the guy who invented acid. There's just this huge community of all these insiders that kind of got away from the system. And one of these guys was a roommate of mine, and he was in the Iraqi war, and he was literally on the site. I don't know if you guys remember this news clip of the Iraqis pulling down the Saddam Hussein statue. Right? Yeah. They had like some kind of rope or chain, like pulling it down as it was like bending, right?
Yeah.
He was literally on site for that shoot, where it was an open square that had the statue. They ushered in all the extras. They brought in the camera crew. The guy said, give the instructions, action. They did the whole scene. They filmed it. Okay, cut. Everyone left, and the square was open, right? And that was the clip that allowed people to go, okay, the Iraqis want us to be there. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
It's funny because right now we're seeing some people are debating this video of the Afghan people on that aeroplane trying to leave Afghanistan.
Right,
there's been quite a few people pull that apart already, saying, well, this plane doesn't have any turboprops inside. You can't see the turbines and whatever, and this looks like it's inflatable and
a big prop.
So the likelihood is, if that's the case there, that again, this is all being done for the media to brainwash people into believing that this is happening. And what people have to really, realize, this is problem, reaction, solution again. They are creating a problem. They're waiting for the public outcry, the reaction that they're expecting to get. And the same people that set all this up are then coming up with the solution. And I'll guarantee every time that solution is the next step and where they wanted to get to all along, but couldn't do it without the influence of people.
Right. Without the influence of getting past their critical factor, making them believe it. And then you have a mass of people that just accepts it. And now they can put their policies through. Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges with this is like deciphering the people who are evil and behind it, and the people who are just believing it blindly and think they're doing the right thing. Yeah. That's one of the tough ones to figure out. Is this person behind it, or they're just zonked out?
Yeah. So with all the craziness going on right now in the world, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but how important is it for us to focus on our own vibration and what we're sending out to the universe? And what would you say would be some great ways to maybe to improve on this, like maybe make meditation, visualization? What would you recommend to kind of help us with that?
I'm really glad you guys are open to this topic, because a lot of people think it's a really woo-woo thing. But it's actually really the most powerful thing we can ever do, right? We want to be effective in life. Man, I have ridiculous results with pretty much everything I do, right? I make one video and I get on the Alex Jones show, right? Like,
Yeah.
You know, how many thousands of people are putting out information and that's their big dream? Well, yeah, I did it with one video, right? I always wanted to grow my hair back. I would be wearing a hat right now if I didn't figure it out and create and attract all the information. But here you see me, right? It's looking okay, and I still got a little bit ways to go, but it worked, right? And I'm trying to give examples of like in the now moments for people to like realize, you know, this stuff is real. Like you can create literal miracles. You know, I wanted to get into the music industry a few years ago, and I literally get a random phone call from a friend like, hey, there's this guy that needs help emotionally because he went through this crazy divorce. And yeah, maybe you can go park your RV there and, you know, meet him and stuff like that. Like, okay, it'd be nice to have an extra spot and stuff like that. Well, I meet the guy. He's the most prolific music composer of all time, right? Mozart put out like 600 pieces. Beethoven put out like 722, I believe. This guy's put out 30,000. He's just a ridiculous high-level musical genius that's connected to everybody, right? And that's like one of my best friends now, right? And now I'm set to go on tour next year, and I was invited to play my own set and everything. I didn't call anybody, man. You know, I wasn't sending people my music every day, you know, and bothering people. I learned this technology. I practiced it all the time, and I really got it. And so some people are like, this must be law of attraction. You must be big into it, right? And I kind of respond like, well, you like to walk around and run around sometimes, right? Well, you must be into the law of gravity and the law of density, right? You're really big into that, huh? You know, and so of course not. You just walk around, right? So how do you relate this to, you know, creating your life? It's really about emotional control, emotional intensity, right? You can see at the end of the video I did with breaking down that cartoon, I'm literally in tears because I care so much, right? I have so much love for people and the kids, you know, that it's just so powerful. It will shake the world, man. You know, and now just after yesterday, I've had hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And you're right. It's the emotional connection is extremely important too, isn't it?
That's
to all this. It's a key component.
That is the volume of your vibrational transmission, right? So as much as you can just feel, this is hard to do, you know, listening to my stories and those results, I could go on for hours talking about all this kind of thing. It's hard to listen to that result and think, you know, someone listening is going to be able to do that. You know, you can't just go from $0 to $1 million and like, I'm going to do it, right? You got to go in believable steps. So what the easiest way to understand this is feeling love for yourself. That's one. Gratitude is the most powerful one. There was a time where I was living in my van, homeless, and it was cold outside and stuff, and I didn't have anywhere to go. I knew the technology. I was learning it at the time. And so every night I would be in my van, you know, my cold ass van. But I would lay there like, I'm so grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm so grateful I have this nice warm blanket. I'm so grateful that, and I find reasons, right? You put an idea in your subconscious, you'll become a genius at it. And so not too much later, I had a series of events that I lived in a beach house for free for a year and a half in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
How did that work out? I felt grateful before I even had it, right? I felt grateful about the money before I had it. I felt grateful for these impossible bass guitars I have. I have a ridiculous bass guitar collection that of like some of the rarest of the rarest. And how do you get the rarest of the rarest when there's only 140 made 30 years ago and they're $10,000 a piece? I got 2 of them. You know?
Right.
So it's just focusing on what you love so much that you're not going back and forth in between emotions. And that emotional intensity brings in place first ideas, circumstances, situations, and people to get you there. And sometimes you gotta hold on to that dream and be very patient for a long time, you know?
Now, we're probably seeing the effects of what I'm going to ask next globally anyway.
Yeah.
But can hypnosis leave long-term damaging effects if done wrong? You know, if somebody left left the show and you didn't bring them back into the room from where you hypnotized them, but it caused some serious problems. And, you know, are we seeing globally now from mass hypnosis the fallout and the damages of this happening to humanity?
Great question. Yes, there can be massive trauma damage if someone is hypnotized and they're not given proper suggestions, or they're not cared for correctly. On the other hand, you know, if I were to hypnotize someone and just leave them up on stage, you know, or leave them in the therapy room and just kind of leave, I noticed they just fall asleep and then they wake up later and they're back to themselves, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Some of the suggestions can still stick. That's why, you know, it's important to go to someone you trust. This is one of the reasons why the adult hypnosis shows I've really been repulsed by, because most of those guys are really disrespectful and making fun of people, you know, in that state, which I think can be damaging. I have an older friend that I talk to once in a while, and she stayed at home for this past year and a half, and she got her medical procedures, and she's still afraid to go outside. You know, she's still afraid to go to the store. She's traumatized.
Yeah.
Like, and we're seeing that everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
It's a real big issue, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we're going to start winding things down here, Michael. But before we go, I'd like to ask you, you know, and my last question kind of touched on it a bit, but with everything that's going on and everybody, there's a lot of people that are down right now and energetically, and of course that vibration is kind of going out to the world. And so how can people stay positive right now and kind of bring their vibration up and just try to, you know, obviously when you know how the world works, you know, the more that you fight against something, the more that it seems to gravitate back towards you. And Chris and I had a conversation about this earlier today. So what do you think people can do to just kind of stay in that positive mindset to just, you know, help, you know, affect, if all of us kind of get in that positive vibe, maybe it'll affect everybody else and kind of be, you know what I mean? And spread through the whole world.
Yeah, I used to direct and help put together worldwide meditations, and always find these studies like the Maharishi effect. You know, when a certain percentage of the population gets together and prays, which is really just a feeling, a focused feeling, it will literally reduce war, right? So this is really extremely important. So how do you get better? How do you feel better when the world is, you know, you're immersed in this destruction of the world and what's going on? What I would do is, you know, it's not a one answer thing. We all have to keep listening to positive information, right? We need to be around positive people. Like, hanging out with you guys is amazing, right? Because we kind of have this little mastermind going on. We're talking about different ideas. You guys are readers, right? You guys learn about stuff. And so we all need to be around people like that, right? This could be the best opportunity, because now you're separated from your family. You know, maybe they don't agree with your views, and now it really created the separation. Well, now is the chance that we really have to be around each other and listen to positive information, right? Like, I would suggest people find me on YouTube and subscribe, and I'll keep putting out content that'll help inspire you and get your mind on track, right? Find someone that you really like, an inspirational author that, you know, makes a lot of sense, right? You got to listen to it every day, right? Every day, just listen to a little bit, right? We have a saying, read a book every day. You don't read a whole book. Just open up the book and read one sentence, right? Make it easy. Set yourself up to win, right? You got to feed your mind with it, because we're being bogged down with a lot of negativity. How do you get the ideas in the subconscious? Repetition, right? The imagination. right?
Yeah.
Reading a book and thinking about the story that happened inside of it that's inspiring, right? Watching a video that really immerses you into the positivity.
Yeah.
And watch movies like The Secret on a regular basis. Watch What the Bleep Do We Know,
Yeah.
right? It's super important.
Yeah, and I also find the social media like Facebook, I mean, sometimes even take a break from that. You know what I mean? I think that could be helpful because, as you know, I know with all this going on and the connections we've made, we've made a lot of like-minded friends, Chris, and I'm probably you as well, Michael. But a lot of it is just, look at this, they're doing this, look at that,
right.
And it's not positive, right? So that all kind of seeps into your critical factor or your mindset. And sometimes you just kind of have to take a step back as much as you want to, go with that in a sense and try to help people. Sometimes you're not really helping people if you're in that negative space, right?
That's such a good point. It's like, is the information going to help you with your focus, with what you're doing and your purpose, or is it taking you away? Right. And I like to talk about Napoleon Hill's book that he put out in 2008, that he put into a vault to be released many years after he died because of fear for his family, for the information getting out. And what was the crucial information that he was so scared about? The way that you get away from the negativity and outwitting the devil is simply by being so focused on your purpose that you're not what he termed a drifter, right? We're not being pulled around. And that's what happens when we get really immersed in all this stuff, like Australia, the Middle East, oh my God.
Yeah.
And now your emotional state changed. You're not even focused on what you're doing with your life. We become a drifter. It happens to all of us, right? So, big reminders to stay on purpose, find something to focus on, because then the devil, right, the evil, can't get you when you're so focused on your purpose, right? I feel it in my life right now because I know what I'm doing and I'm going hard at it, and it's a really amazing experience. And so, focus on your dream, focus on your purpose. You can do it. Just don't ever give up.
Yeah. Do you have anything further for Michael before we sign off?
Yeah, is there any experiments people can try at home to give them a perspective of the power of hypnotism, or anything we can try today before you go that will give an effect to people?
That's a good question. Yeah. You want to try an imagination experiment or?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what this will do is basically you're going to use your imagination to create an unconscious response, right? So how do we influence our minds to a deeper degree? Well, you can induce relaxation. That's a way, right? That's a feeling, right? But you don't have to use it. You don't have to use relaxation. Here's a great one. Let's try this. We just put our arms out straight in front of you, kind of parallel from each other. Okay, you have your arms out, and pretend, imagine, see, feel, however you do, right? Eyes closed or open. Imagine there's two magnets in the palms of your hands, right? Two large neodymium, however you say it, big, large magnets that, like the car magnets that pull your hands closer together. And when you start to really conceptualize and see and feel them, they'll start to pull your hands closer and closer together, right? Imagine that magnetic force pulling them. You can even imagine I place a rubber band around your arms. And as you imagine it, you can feel it pull closer, 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 closer together until they touch. And when they touch, you realize that you're using your imagination, open your subconscious mind.
I can feel in the palms of my hands, like it's tingling in each one, like there is this force between them.
Right, that's the power of the imagination.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not the power of the hypnotist, really. It's just following, the right procedure. But it's just, how do we get into our minds and have more influence on ourselves? How much can we change our own feelings, right? imagination is a good example. You know, you can use visualization and meditation, but sometimes, you know, people kind of get lost in it and it gets a little woo-woo-y, right?
Yeah.
But it just comes down to that concept, pacing and leading yourself little by little, you know, and you can do amazing things. Like, you know, after this show, if you want to practice more, practice making your eyelids heavy. That's a very common one, right? And it's very easy to do. You can try this, right? Just close your eyes. With your eyes closed, relax them fully and completely. All around your eyes, let them go. Just feeling it allows your eyes to relax. Now hold on to that relaxation. Lock that relaxation into place. And give them a test and make sure they stay relaxed. And it's almost as if you're trying to open them, but they're so relaxed because your imagination was just quickly induced, it can keep them closed. And that same quality of relaxation you feel in your eyelids, you can now imagine very easily go down your entire body just by focusing on different parts. Your shoulders, right? They can just drop down easy. Your jaw, just release and relax. And you can use this exercise to go down and through any part and every part of your body. You may feel any tension that was there before. Now release. You can even use your imagination, like untying the shoelace and how it just opens up the shoe and my foot finally feels better, right? Or the muscles that are hanging on your bones swing like a hammock, right? And so these imagination exercises allow you to go further and deeper into yourself, really.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's almost a good way to meditate as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like self-hypnosis because you can test the depth very easily. You know, so once you get to like a really relaxed state like that, you know, you go on down your whole body, you get your whole body like, oh my goodness, it doesn't even move now, you know? Then you can start to do things like imagine there's a balloon, a bunch of balloons tied to your wrist. Okay. And if you're in a really great imagination state, you can test it and you'll notice your arm will start to move up, right? Just like the hands kind of start coming closer together.
Yeah.
And so, hey, for some people, it may not work right away or whatever. And then some people, you know, people come up to me like, how come I can't be hypnotized? I went up on stage. I went to this guy, you know, you just might have to practice a little more to get it. You know, just go through just like anything in life, really, you know, some people get it right away, just like sometimes it's a little kid that just freaking knows how to draw out of nowhere, you know?
Yeah. Are there any self-hypnosis books that you know you would recommend?
Yeah, I would look up Melvin Powers.
Melvin Powers,
that's really great material. Yeah, I would suggest him. That's who I'm familiar with, and that's who works for me. Yeah, really good stuff, you know.
That's
cool.
The new encyclopedia of stage hypnotism by Ormond McGill. That was a book that a friend of mine who's a hypnotist back in the UK recommended that I got and read some time ago. And you know, that's what he does.
I was taught by his top apprentice.
Right.
Awesome.
Tom Silver, a very, very good hypnotist. Yeah. He's been hired by the government to hypnotize murderers against their will to get information for court cases.
What?
That's real information you got right there.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Chris, I know that Michael had said that he's got some nice bass guitars lined up.
I was thinking exactly.
Were you thinking of that too? And
you know, it's not uncommon, Michael, that we do ask people that can play instruments to give us a little tune before they go.
I don't have anything plugged in here. It's gonna sound. Here, let me share a little bit of the story. So 2013, I saw this bass for sale, made by Ned Steinberger. Only 140 made. It was $10,000. I like it because it has a tremolo bridge. I'm into extreme bass guitar. That's one of my YouTube channels. And I like having the whammy bar because it really gives a whole dimension to the bass.
And did you have that picture up there prior as a visualization board?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
I've had it up for a while. The last time I saw it, it was, $10,000. In 2013 was the last time I ever saw it for sale at all. And I have two of them.
That's amazing.
Good pair, right? It's unreal, It really is. If you talk to any bass player who's into this kind of stuff, it's like, oh my God, you have two of them.
What
right?
make is it?
Ned Steinberger.
Yeah.
Is really smart engineer guitar maker. I don't know what to play, man. It's not plugged in or anything. It's just gonna.
It's all good. We got you to do it.
You did, yeah.
The power of suggestion, you see, right there.
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So any parting words before you go, Michael, just for our audience?
Hey, it's been a great conversation. I hope anybody listening, you got something out of it. I encourage you to watch it again, boost up their watch time and get the information really embedded. It's really important to listen to it over and over. And I hope you guys learned a lot. Find me on YouTube, subscribe. I'm putting out some really great information lately. And let's get this information out. Keep being repetitive to your friends and family because it can make a difference.
Yeah.
And don't forget everyone. Yeah. Don't forget everyone. The world has been mass hypnotized. Don't be one of them.
Yeah, really. Now you know some of the tricks and they won't work on you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And listen, we thank you so much for doing this. It's been a great conversation and we had a great rapport. And I think you're right. I think people will get a lot out of this. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. And like we say here, love one another, believe nothing, and question everything. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Bye, Johnny. Bye, Chris. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks, Michael.